Well, hello everyone. Today I have the pleasure of being joined with Iman.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me on here on your show.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I know it's going to be a pleasure for all my guests who will have the delight to be listening to you shortly.
I hope so too.
But yeah, I think to begin with, a nice little background of yourself and your journey from Iman, from Saudi Arabia, and especially from like a religious aspect, from that to a spirituality, and how that has influenced your life currently.
Yes, it's been quite the journey. It's been fascinating and interesting, and I do tend to approach it from a non I used to be a victim. I used to approach it from a victimhood. Oh, they did this to me. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, I did this. I lived that. And but
Right.
I don't do that anymore. I've learned to become more of the observer
Right.
and to simply wait in order for people to understand. Uh, my, as much as it's important right now to shine a light on radical Islam and uh, the Islamist movement that is mobilized in the West, it seems. I find it's more important for me right now in my life path to help people understand why we're here,
Right.
why we're all here. So I grew up in Riyadh. Well, I was born in London, England, in Westminster,
Right.
and I was brought up there until about the age of 9. So I had the privilege of knowing a lot more than the average little Arabic girl that is born into Islam,
Right.
into Wahhabi, Salafi, radical Islam would know. I knew what freedom looked like. I knew what women should look like and do look like. And I enjoyed freedom up until a very young age when I was moved from England to Saudi Arabia. My father probably is still a practicing surgeon. He was a surgeon doing his fellowship in England, and then by the age of 9, we all moved to Saudi Arabia,
Okay.
the entire family, which it was me, my brother, and my mother and my father. And that's sort of when the horror, the horror began and grew up. I went to a madrasa. Islamist teachings. It was both Wahhabi and Muslim Brotherhood, I find.
Oh, okay.
I'm also half Egyptian, but the Muslim Brotherhood was very active in Saudi Arabia in that time period, and they
Right.
had merged their teachings with the Salafi Wahhabi Islamists. So that was not a pleasant portion of my life. I lived there until I was 26, and I got into plenty trouble, plenty, with the religious authorities, with my family. I believe I was arrested somewhere between 3 to 4 times for various, mostly not wearing hijab or not covering my face or being with a boy. And my final arrest was when I was 23 and I was in medical school. And yes, they somehow allowed us to become doctors.
Wow.
Not that that was a pleasant experience either. But I was in med school. Actually, I was a doctor. I was a full-fledged physician when I was finally arrested. And I was thrown in jail for 3 months because I was in a vehicle with a man who was not my husband, and my face wasn't covered. And I was sentenced to 80 lashes in public. And that was the last sort of traumatic event that happened to me before I finally left at the age of 26 and came to Canada. I arrived in Canada. And from there on, I my journey in Canada was unfortunately no better.
Yeah.
I,
On behalf of
yeah,
Canadians, I apologize for that.
well, I don't generalize. I don't sort of, I also chose a part of Canada that seemed to be nice, nice, right? But it was also a very liberal stronghold with a lot of people on the far left end of the spectrum. I just didn't
Right.
understand any of this
Right.
when I came here. So I observed medicine. Medicine was essentially a slavery program. It was a slavery program. And there was a lot of Arab men, Muslim men, and I ended up being assaulted by one of them. He was a physician, my senior. And that was the end of my career in medicine. I was removed by everyone. Nobody wanted me in that program because I wouldn't shut up about my sexual assault. And the hospital sided with him because he used to pray in
Oh,
public,
Jesus.
and he was a very devout Muslim, and I'm a lion. And I was here on a scholarship. My scholarship was terminated eventually, first by the hospital and then by the Saudi consulate after word leaked out that I was sexually assaulted. And that was the end of my medical career here in Canada. So I refused to go back, and I decided to take a couple of years off. During those couple of years, I kept seeing massage, massage, massage. Everywhere I would go, or I would hear things about massage therapy, this and that. And I ended up enrolling in massage school, and that was my next career.
Oh, okay.
And then came, you know what? The pandemic.
Yeah.
And that ended that career.
Well, you know,
But that,
I
sorry.
find it really interesting. I find it really interesting, given your background, given your
Yeah,
cultural background, given your ethnic background, that I mean, we hear it so often. You know, the stories. It's not unique, really. The different entities, perhaps, but of the ex-Muslim story, the journey. But you chose it. Like you are spiritual. Like you're definitely spiritual. You're very much so. I mean, I follow your content, and I would certainly advise anyone to. It's refreshing, actually. It's a fun accompaniment to a morning espresso. But it's really interesting. I mean, you've managed to focus on the humanism element more
I
so than
do.
any as I would say any religiosity. You distinguished between the two very very seamlessly.
Yes, we live in an interesting time period where there is the activism of human. People like the term, "Oh, I'm a humanitarian. I go here and I do this,"
Yeah,
and that's great. That's fine. We love labels. Humans
we
love
don't
labels.
we don't we yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah. I try not to label, although spirituality on itself is a label. But now apparently I'm a witch, so I don't know. I really don't know what's happening. But I try to avoid labels as much as I can. I definitely identify myself as an extremely spiritual human being, and I've literally detached from, I don't want to say this realm, but this earthly everything that people focus on, the bickering, the fighting, you're this, you're that, I'm
Yeah,
this, I'm that, you're here, I'm there. I've removed myself from all of that. And I have come to find that even those that operate under the guise of humanism and humanitarianism aren't really truly humanists or humanitarians.
yeah,
Because we've attached a label to something, and under that label is a specific definition that you're supposed to follow. So
right,
if you're a humanitarian, you're supposed to go to these countries to do some humanitarian work and brag about it.
yeah,
That seems to be the term humanitarianism. I also have followed, and I was a part of a bunch of atheist organizations. I'm not going to name them,
of course,
uh, but they operate under the guise of humanitarianism and atheism, and they are about as bad as any religious organization.
yeah,
There's a lot of ego. There's egos everywhere.
yeah.
Oh, I'm more humanitarian than you. you know, that's not it. That's not how it works. Humanitarianism for me is to see what connects us all,
Yeah,
not to see and focus on what divides us. That's how I
precisely,
see it.
precisely. No, I concur with that immensely, man.
Yeah.
Um, one thing I often say, and I mean every time I say it, I think it becomes true and truer every time I utter it, is when someone will say to me, how do you do X, Y, and Z? And these are so different, so many different things. I will happily say, because every human being is a walking ambiguity. It's one of the
Yeah.
most beautiful things. We're not, as your point of being labels, we love our labels, but
Oh,
we are our own, we are our own barrier more so than other barriers. We put a barrier on ourselves in so many
indeed.
ways. For every barrier that might be actually physically out there, we put one on us, and we don't realize how much of a burden that actually is by doing that, because then we fall into these brackets which we might not be the only thing we couldn't belong to. And like,
Exactly.
and yeah, I mean, I always say
We
embrace
love.
embrace your ambiguity. Embrace it. Embrace the left, the right, the up, the down.
I have no problem with anyone on any. I used to really. I listen. I live in a very very far leftist part. Far. Did I say far left? And I try, and like I really try to see
Yeah,
eye to eye. I don't focus on the difference. I focus on truly what it is we are, what brings us together.
yeah,
Um, but unfortunately, it is always the opposite side that begins.
yeah,
Oh, this, and this, and this, and that, and then we have to do this and this, and then all the demands and the
yeah,
definitions and the labeling and authoritarianism as well, which I completely reject.
yeah, and
Completely
rightly
reject
so, and rightly
any
so.
form, especially ideological authoritarian. I can't do it. So I I find myself right now in a situation, not that I'm being oppressed, but I'm definitely the black sheep again. And I've never had a problem being
Hmm.
a black sheep ever. If you visit my YouTube channel, the first video that I have on there is I say, "Welcome, black sheep. Embrace your individuality.
Right.
Embrace it and shine, shine, shine." Because people who are like us, who are considered black sheep growing, I'm disowned by my family, like many ex-Muslims. I don't see that as a horrible thing. I don't even see it as my problem. I see it as theirs. That's their problem in lack of accepting someone who's different.
That's a
We
very
are
healthy
here.
perspective.
It has to be. Otherwise, you're just gonna what? Live in sadness and
Right.
rejection of your own self. How do you accept your authentic self? How do you allow your authentic self to shine through if you accept a label? Without, well, I mean, it is a label, but you have to kind of not dim your light, you know?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. And you have to realize that. I mean, don't be the impediment on your own individuality. And all
no,
these, as you were saying, all the acts of labeling, we do that. We it's almost as if we prefer to stick up for that label than to stick up for ourselves,
yes.
stick up for our tribe, as it were, as opposed to stick up for our individual opinion or our individual perspective.
And
And that poses a lot of difficulty with how to even become an individual, because all then at that point you're just stuck in defending the side or the label, the group, the color, whatever.
yeah, I prefer the term authentic self to black sheep. The
Yeah,
black sheep, the black sheep label, or sort of group of humans, we've existed throughout history, and I think I've said it in one of my lives. I said that if you go back, really back, I don't even know what the time period was. Anyone who said that the Earth wasn't flat, remember the Dark Ages when they thought that the Earth was flat?
yeah,
If you said anything against it, you were persecuted. You
yeah.
were seen as a problem in society. Do we even dare to say right now the Earth is flat? No. Opinions have changed. Times have changed. People have accepted realities. We are just in a different time period in history. There will always be people who are labeled problems, different.
Right.
conspiracy theorists, black sheep, whatever you want to label us, ex-Muslims, I don't know. Some sort of label. You're not supposed to vilify. And it's sad. It's really sad to see so many humans who have learned absolutely nothing from history. And they continue to perpetuate history
Yeah.
on anyone who is different. Have we not learned? We are here, people like myself, and we are plenty. We are here to show others, including ourselves, that there might be a different path, that there might be a different way, that there is a place for different people. But it seems like the mainstream is where you have to be.
Yeah.
And if
That's
you're
a
not there, then you're othered.
yeah. And very
You know?
quickly too. You're very quickly put into that
Oh,
you're very
immediately.
quickly othered. Which is again, to your point, it poses a problem actually to anyone who questions, thinks differently, thinks for themselves, not even differently, just thinks for themselves. Has questions, has inquiries, has an active mind, and has an active soul, and actually wants to activate all these things as opposed to just be laying stagnant in some kind of collective mindset.
Indeed, indeed. But like, I'm not going to tell you that my YouTube channel has thousands of followers. I've had all kinds of accusations thrown at me. I've had all kinds of bullying, online and offline. I've lost all my friendships that I thought were friendships. But it's nice because as your authentic self begins to come through and you begin to accept who you are, because I personally can tell you that I've lived all my life not accepting who I am and trying to fit into mainstream, which never worked for me. Never. It never worked. And it actually made me sick. And it made me want to end this life, which is not what we want. And it made me mentally not okay. It wasn't until I accepted myself and I poured love in myself and acceptance within myself. And I'm not going to go and start calling people names. But if you don't like me, all is well. All is good. I'm not going to not like you in return. I actually have learned to appreciate every human being for who they are. It is just it is just unfortunate the level of projecting that I'm seeing right now happening, and it's happening on anyone who thinks different or dares to speak their authentic voice. The level of projecting, and this is a big message that I would like people to hear. When you judge another, when you label another, when you hate another, when you put out negative energy towards another human being, because sometimes you don't even know why, because you just don't like them. That says more about you than it does about that person. It's really, really important right now that people understand that when they say, I don't like this person because da 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 da, they are projecting an internal wound that they have inside of them. If it's not an internal wound, then it is a story that they are holding onto that does not belong to them. It is an opinion that they have that has attached itself onto them, an energy that they probably should do some work, look into, see if this belief is something they actually truly believe in.
Well
When
said.
you watch the news and the news tells you to hate this person and to hate that group of people and this group of people are awful people, do you feel good or do you feel bad inside of you? Many people feel horrible. Many people do feel that they have to hate a specific group of people. But that horrible feeling, that icky feeling that they feel inside of them, is them separating from who they truly are. And they know that they are not supposed to hate another. They know this inside of them. So they feel this icky feeling, oh, they turn the TV off. I don't want to watch this. But unfortunately, that energy attaches itself to us and we end up projecting it. But ultimately, Would you have hated another person if you were not told to? How is this different from how I was brought up under radical Islam? You gotta hate the Jews. You gotta hate the Christians. You gotta hate the infidels. Oh, these people are gonna go to hell. Women who don't cover their hair are whores. You hate, 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 hate. We're not here to hate each other and judge each other. I feel like I went on a rant.
No, but that was a good one. It was a good one. You're right, though. You're right. Going again, using the category of labeling again, we're rebranding, but using the same methods. Rebranding
It's
using the same methods. It's you're perfectly accurate on that one. Um, yeah, I don't think most people even. I think individuals have the know-how. They think I don't want to do this. I don't want to hate. I don't want to despise this person, this group. But I think it also comes down to no other person knows if I can beat an individual. You know what I mean? Like, no, I think too many people are fearful of what other people are going to say, even though everyone simultaneously might be thinking this is all stupid, but I'm still going to do it anyway because I don't know I don't know where my social cues are. Can I eject all this and reject all this and kind of
yeah,
extract myself? And I think that's an act of courage, which we don't think about in society, in a political setting too, but also in a societal setting. Rejecting and ejecting yourself from that situation and actively separating yourself to be an individual, to you know follow truth, follow truth with a capital T, and seek it out actively, even if it's not on what is supposed to be. I say supposed to be your side or your tribe or your group. Truth has no home. It's just truth.
it is. And it's important to follow your truth as well. Because in the past, I used to think, there's only one truth.
Mhm.
And as I spiritually awakened, and I awakened specifically, by the way, because of the mask mandate.
Right.
Well, and the horror of people reporting on me. I had a medical exemption during COVID from wearing a mask. I was public enemy number one. Um, it was incredible. It was no different than the religious police of Saudi Arabia who used to chase me down to cover my face. I relived it all again. And the lack of empathy and the lack of understanding and the lack of compassion that originated from government and media propaganda telling people to be afraid from anyone who doesn't look like you, anyone who doesn't follow the orders, was unbelievable. I could not believe it was happening in the West. I used to, it finally it it rattled me so much out of this illusion that we are living in, to have to relive that trauma. I had men chase me down the stairs in Canada. Men who were like 10 feet away from me would run after me down the stairwell because my face wasn't covered. This is, you're talking to a woman who was abducted by 4 men in my early 20s, and I was basically hidden for months from my family, and I was abused, I was assaulted, I was psychologically tortured, and no one gave a damn. Nobody cared what I had gone through because you have to follow the rules. So that essentially is what broke me out of my ego. My ego shattered during COVID because I thought, oh, I have a mask mandate, I'm good. No
Right.
one's gonna say anything to me. Oh, was I ever wrong? I have a mask exemption sort. So it was how programmed humans are, and it really reminded me of the ruthlessness of the radicals back home,
Right.
and how they don't see you. They don't see you. They see you as the enemy. They see you as something that needs to be stamped out of society. No different than the labels that are going around right now. It's just a different group of people. We've seen it since the election of Donald Trump in the states. Regardless how you feel about Trump,
Hmm.
we've seen it start from there, And then it propagated to anti-maskers, to anti-vaxxers, to climate deniers. It keeps shifting. It
Yeah,
keeps changing. You gotta hate these people. These people are not okay. They're not good. You can't accept these people. You gotta be afraid. Fear, 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 fear. The
it's
energy of fear.
it fuels like nothing else does. And when you're bombarded with it in various formats, video content as well as news reports of all sorts, and
Yeah.
adding social media to the fuel on that one, it will become second nature in a way, just to automatically associate that group, that person, that action with something that's disgusting, horrible, or I have to despise it.
Yeah. I was, and it's done. It's done.
Yeah.
They've done it, and it's been a success. And I only give you these stories as examples. I was in Walmart. Of course, no store would honor my medical exemption. No hospital, nobody would. I ended up shutting my massage business and staying home. And that's when I began to heal my trauma from my past, because I had not healed the trauma of my kidnapping, the trauma of living under radical
Right.
Islam, the trauma I hadn't. So I had to do all of this alone because everything was shut down. I couldn't get therapy. But I remember going to Walmart, and at that point, I was wearing the mask and I hated it. And there was a little girl, I was at the checkout, and there was a little girl, little bit, maybe 7, 8 years old.
Mhm.
And I kept pulling the mask because I couldn't breathe, kept pulling the mask off my face at the checkout. And she stood there in front of me and she gave me the nastiest, dirtiest, hate filled look and energy that emanated from her. And I looked at her and I couldn't say a word because I felt sick to my stomach. I'm very energy sensitive,
Right.
very, very, people like us read subtle energy. And I thought to myself, she's 7 or 8, and they've already, like, she's filled with hatred. How will she live? How, what will she attract in her life? She's only young, and this energy is going to live in her for a very, very long period of time. And she's completely unaware of this energy. I could hate her back. I could yell at her. I could tell her to whatever. I could talk to her mother. But I felt sad. I felt sad. A lot of people don't understand that the energy of fear, the, the energy of hate, masks the energy of fear. Behind hate, anyone who's projecting hatred towards a specific human or thing, they are essentially afraid. That is the true energy. And these are energies that have been perpetuated on humans throughout history from the beginning of humanity. However, you want to look at it, through religion, the church, the Crusades, the Inquisition, however you want to look at it, it's always been the energy of fear and hate.
Yeah.
And it keeps us in a very, very low, low, low vibration. Low, that we are unable to connect with our spirit, that we are unable to connect with our higher self, we are unable to find our true purpose in this life, we are unable to live our authentic life that we are here to live. We have to obey. So this was just another exercise in perpetuating the energy of fear and hate, which worked significantly well. And as much as it did work, a lot of people are now starting to spiritually awaken. There is a huge, massive awakening happening across this world. Every race, every nation, there are people who are waking up spiritually and realizing what we are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, and I think that's a good way to put it too. I think it's a good way to put it. People want, I think we as humans, I think now more than ever, we want that authentic connection, but we also want to create, perhaps more accurate, create a purpose for our individual selves in this
In,
world and work arduously at that. And that those real connections in a world where we're so connected, we're simultaneously so disconnected, ironically.
we are.
And fear, you're right. Fear is something. it's a great motivator, and it's also a great way, a great distractor too. It's a great way to do exactly what it does. It keeps you in your lane in a negative sense,
Yes,
and it inhibits you from, to an extent that you like allow it to do so. It inhibits you from creating authentic connections in the world. It inhibits you on taking good, healthy risks because it makes you just stagnant. It allows you to just follow a narrative.
indeed, indeed. And if like I'm not gonna really go into religion, but the people who broke through that fear, there is a few examples of them throughout history, regardless if you believe in them or not. They have been, crucified, burnt alive. They, the powers to be make sure that people like us don't last too long, because we do emit a frequency, we do emit a vibration that attracts other humans, because we are based in love. We are not based in fear. When you break out of the energy of fear and you do your trauma work and you do your healing, I call it shadow work, but
Right.
I actually identify myself as a shadow worker, if you may. Not that people listen to me, but I've successfully done all my shadow work here alone in this room that you see that I'm in, and I've moved myself from a fear-based existence, which I was in, to a love, more of a love based existence. And that's when you begin to emit a frequency, because we are beings that emit frequencies.
Right.
Have you ever had a little bird or a little animal die in your hand, holding them? You will know immediately when that animal dies, and it's not because you check their pulse or you check their breathing. You will know because their vibration has stopped.
Right.
That's how you know. So we emit a frequency, we emit a vibration. If you find yourself repeating patterns in life, I always attract this kind of blah, 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 blah. I always find myself in this. It's not the external that's the problem. It's probably a vibration or a frequency that you are emitting that you need to tend to. So when you start to shift from fear to love, your world will literally shift.
Oh,
In
yeah. No, I concur with that. I can't claim to be someone who is, for lack of a better word, actively spiritual, but I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to it. So what I said is I am in a different sense. I think the way I look at spirituality for myself is through a Spinozian lens. So the workings of Baruch Spinoza, the 16th century philosopher.
yeah.
He was actually the inspiration to Einstein, and so many. He's
Okay.
a precursor to the Enlightenment in many ways.
Yeah.
And he always talked about, he used the term God, nature, and substance as, in a non-religious sense, as if they're all connected, and we are connected too. He said, but we are just a shrapnel in everything that's going on. He said we don't know these things. And there's higher levels of beautiful things. There is a mechanism. There is essence in the world. There is
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
higher than us, and he said that's what makes it beautiful. So in that sense, I do that does always has always appealed to me. And what you were saying, Iman, about moving from fear to love, to me, I understand that completely, because one of my guiding principles for life are truth, love, and understanding.
Yes.
And I think those will take you very far. That and a really hard will to want to be determined to go somewhere. But I think those are, because it will allow you to always remain calm, and no matter the situation. You can't always know what's going on in someone's head, what they've gone through, so on and so forth. And even at times before you fully understand yourself. But I think those are always a good way to interact with yourself and the world around you is this truth, love, and understanding, and trying to find out the connection between all three.
Indeed. And listen, I'm not telling you I know 100% what's happening. I'm still working through my own issues. But I do connect with my guides. I do connect with the universe. Whenever I tell people how it all happened during COVID, they look at me, they're like, okay, you're crazy. But how do I prove it? I don't know. I can't. I can't prove anything to anyone. Because when the universe begins to connect with you, or when you begin to connect with the universe, it is a very, very personal experience that you cannot prove.
Right.
Your universe, your authentic self, your higher self is a language that you have to develop with yourself. You can't go out and prove it to people. There's a very lovely, lovely man on Twitter. I actually know him on a personal level, atheist. He's an ex-Muslim as well, and he would say he would praise. He put out a tweet once, and he said, "Prove to me that the soul exists." uh and you can't prove it because it doesn't. I'm like, nobody can prove to you that your soul exists but yourself. that's that's like bullying people to do your homework for
Right.
you. That's very egotistical, and it's very limited, very,
Yeah.
very limited. It's personal. There is no actually one God, and the way I see God is within each and every one of us. I don't necessarily enjoy using the term God. I prefer the term source, because there is so much stigma, there is so much history behind the word God. And then you have the atheist movement on its own. Not that I'm poo-pooing the atheist movement, but they have a hatred towards God. And again, there's that energy of hate, which behind it you will find fear. So I tend to use the term source because source is in each and every one of us, and that is your authentic self. And unless you look within, you will not be able to connect with source or your authentic self. And you won't be able to receive any kind of guidance or messages, or know anything about anything. So the work really is always internal. It's always internal. It's not external. It's not by waging a war against this person, this religion, that. It's not.
Absolutely.
Because Islam itself, the ideology that I state, has an aspect of it that is spiritual, which is Sufism.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I enjoy Sufism. Not all of it. But the spiral movements,
Yep.
that's very important. Very important. And people look at it and say, "Oh, that's so pretty how they're dancing," but they don't understand what it is and what it's for.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because radical Islam came along and suppressed all these spiritual elements. But yeah,
Yeah, that is one feature of Islam, Sufism, that I actually really enjoy. I love Sufi music, actually. I think it's actually really calming and
it is.
something I like to listen to either for on a long run or a workout, actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Even that, son?
Um, it is
That's
very, yeah, well, I am multifaceted. So but I do find there's appeal. I am always taken by Omar Khayyam, the Persian writer.
yes,
So I love Omar Khayyam. Just
yes, yes.
beautiful. I mean, Rumi has beautiful words as well, but there's something
I have
just
an
really
oracle that
appealing.
for me.
Yeah, but there's even I forget his name from
Mari?
perhaps I think he's from Pakistan. He's one of the
Oh,
most he's known for his music musical elements
oh,
with us
okay.
Sufism. Um,
Yes.
something Khan. I forget the first name. It's
Okay. No, I don't
but
know that.
very good music when it comes to if you just want to be in a calming state or an enlightened state or an awoken state, however you want to, whatever you're wanting to do in that moment. Very purposeful and subsequently very meaningful lyrics and very meaningful tones to his music.
Ah,
But yeah, I do feel that. I think there is something we dismiss. I think we I think you'd actually enjoy reading, Iman. I think you'd actually enjoy reading if you haven't already, are the works of Baruch Spinoza, because he talks
Okay.
about this. He talks, so his story is kind of interesting. When you were saying how you refer to it as the source, that's you kind of reminded me how he refers to it is he was born Jewish, if anyone can be born Jewish, but and he slowly became more skeptical of everything and said was a lover of science, a lover of the world. And as far as I know, he's only one of two people in the world to be excommunicated from his synagogue
Oh, wow.
because he was so passionate and so in love, capital L, with knowledge, with truth, with understanding. He looked at himself vestigially as Jewish, but not necessarily as a practicer of it.
Mm.
But he is in very much ways, not only the precursor to the Jewish Enlightenment period,
Yes.
but also the greater European Enlightenments. He gave
Okay.
way to all these beautiful elements. So mid 16, late 1600s, absolutely beautiful works. The first treatise on the separation of church and state, the first treatise on all these things we take for granted,
Oh, yeah, I
really
know.
ways, but just beautiful how he looked at spirituality, this notion of God. So he said the misnomer, he said, is when we say God is here, God is there. He said God is kind of everything and everywhere, and
It is.
it's very he had a kind of a Sufi element to a degree,
Yes.
and so there is this really rich connection, and how you describe it is kind of a prelude connection to how Spinoza would describe this too.
Well, one of the like I understand I've gone more very deep towards like I don't know. I feel like the best way to describe what happened to me is that during COVID the universe took me and put me in a timeout in a
Right,
little corner, and the universe started bombarding me. And
right,
one of the biggest things that happened to me is I understood the language of the universe, and I realized that the universe has been communicating with me from a very very young age, and that there is no such thing as a coincidence. The universe communicates with us through sounds, vibration, color, and well, symbolism
right,
as well, and synchronicities. So numerology, numbers are very, very big for me. I don't know if you are one of these people, but many people right now are seeing synchronicities in numbers. The number 1111 constantly pops up in front of people. 333 constantly pops up in front. 222, 444, 555. That's the universe trying to grab your attention. And it's not like you sit there and you look at the clock until it becomes 11:11 and you say, "Oh, look, it's 11." That's not how it works.
right,
Suddenly you see an 11:11 number in front of you in traffic on a license plate, and it pulls you. It's almost like it's trying to tell you something. That's the universe trying to communicate with you. So one of the ways it communicated with me, because you were talking about Jewish, the Jewish symbol would I would close my eyes and the Jewish symbol would appear in bright blue in front of in front of me, and that was incredible. And I'm like, what is this? What's happening
yeah,
right now? But eventually, as you dive, it will eventually lead you. All these things happening will eventually. You're going to think you're going crazy. People are going to think you're going crazy. And eventually you're going to just do your own search. You're going to go dive into you're going to do a Google search about this symbol, about this number, and it begins. Your
right,
path will begin to unfold. You will begin to enter your path and you will lead it. And you will begin to understand how to communicate. But the biggest thing as well was I used to hate bugs. I used to hate flies. I used to hate spiders, and I would kill them. Now I understand that I can't do that, and I don't do that. I don't love bugs, but I don't kill them. I don't end their lives. I will either remove myself from the area, or I sometimes I sit there and watch the bug.
right, right,
But you will come to understand that we are connected, all of us, all of us. The universe fractals itself through us. Every conscious, even the non-conscious elements in this world, the crystals, the stones, the mountains, who's to say that they're not conscious, you know? But we are all, the universe is experiencing itself through every life in this world. And you do not have the, when you kill something, when you kill someone, when you hate something, when you hate someone, that's a reflection of you doing it to yourself. So I don't kill what is in common between me and something else. And I don't hate what is in common between me and something else. I've learned
Right.
to appreciate animals to an extent that is beyond anything, almost worship animals. And I kind of understand why the Egyptians worship their cats. But you come to appreciate things that you took for granted.
Right.
We are all connected. We are all connected, all of us. And we have to begin to see this. We have to. It's the only way forward. The amount of division and hatred right now in this world, there is no way beyond it except for us to gain consciousness and to begin to connect through consciousness and to understand that we are all connected through consciousness. And that consciousness is experiencing itself and awakening and gaining and spreading through each and every one of us, good and bad. Like labeling, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Everything is important.
Absolutely. No, and that's I think the task, the hard element for so many to realize that it's not about, there's no side to it. There's no, once you're
Mhm.
at that higher plateau, once you are your authentic self,
Yeah,
once you start seeing things in a truer light, in a fuller light, it's not about, this is my side, I'm on the right side now and they're on the wrong side. That no longer exists, that if it ever really did exist to begin with.
no, it. I don't know how it all started, but it really is a pattern throughout humanity.
Yeah.
You know it has been. I believe that's why religions were invented, to divide. They're not meant to unite. They're meant to unite a specific group together against another group.
Yeah.
uh, but ultimately, I think what unites us is is consciousness. Not even humanity, because you can say I'm human and this is an animal, so I'm going to hate the animal. In Islam, they teach you to hate dogs and pigs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say consciousness. I would definitely lean more towards consciousness rather than humanism. Awareness, being aware right now, and being aware of your own vibration and what it is you're emitting out into the
Right.
world.
Right. That's something, it's something I've never put a label on for myself, but it's something I understand the way you describe that to me. Because the
Yeah,
one thing um I always want to ensure when I'm around someone in a physical sense, but also in a virtual sense as we are currently, I want to always ensure that that person is being brought into my energy if they so deserve it, but also being brought into a conversation, that we're talking with each other, not at each other, that
yeah,
we're listening as much as talking, and
yes,
that I'm able to understand where they're coming from as much as where I am coming from. That's how
exactly.
you connect. That's how you have authentic connection. That's how you actually get to know people and get to realize, hey, your perspective isn't the only perspective of the world.
Indeed.
Your disdains or dislikes are not the only disdains and dislikes in the world. And you realize these things also don't even matter at the end of the day, really. You find that there's something, a hashtag I use for so many reasons is, I've been saying it since I was in my teens, is love is the only subject.
Yeah,
And I think it really is. I don't think there's any subject in which love is not the only subject. Whether it's not just in a matter of relationships and rapport with individuals, but in every aspect of life, love is the only subject. Can you step back for a moment, which is often hard to do, and can you just take a breather and a smile and realize, does this really matter? Does this presumed conflict or disdain or something you're told to not like or someone you're told to hate or so forth. Does it really matter? Is it really important? And usually the answer is no, it doesn't really matter. The things that matter is how can you connect? How can you understand each other? How can you resolve and consult and how can you resolve things and how can you go forward, keep going forward no matter what?
Well, and you're right. And I can only hope that that people will listen
Uh,
and appreciate. And I'm sure people will listen and judge, and that's fine.
our
If you need to,
nature.
but do understand that when you judge, you are ultimately judging you. You're
Yeah.
judging yourself. You're judging something that someone, you, me, have reflected back to you that you're just not ready to deal with yet. So instead of dealing with it, you judge, you project, no, 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 I'm not ready to deal with this, so I'm going to project this energy at it, and I don't know, it's been difficult for me to, like, I have a Patreon going on, hoping that people would subscribe to watch and listen and interact. But it's very interesting because uh, as much as I attract the energy of anger and hatred, I also attract an interesting energy, which is people who subscribe to my Patreon to flirt with me,
Interesting.
and they completely miss out on the spiritual element, and they completely refuse to engage with me spiritually because
Right.
they treat it as a dating app. Uh, and because I refuse to engage with them on
That's
that,
that says a lot about them actually.
but it's incredible to me. I'm like, so it's a no win. Like I can't win, you know. Like either you hate me, love me, and then they end up hating me because I wouldn't engage their the problem that they have within them,
Yeah.
you know. And I keep trying to shine a light, and I'm like, okay, you have a pattern here.
Right.
You're repeating this pattern in my Patreon. Let me help you, and they end up leaving. So
Right.
it's been difficult to navigate this spiritual concept, this spirituality and helping
Right.
people. Ultimately, I can't help those who don't want to be helped. I can't.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
that's
you
yeah,
know?
that's a thing too. I think that's the thing that most humans need to realize. You can't help someone who can't like it's you can't offer someone if it's not being accepted, stop offering it. If help is not if you're not able to help and help is not seeked out in some form or asked for in some form, stop giving it. Stop giving it. I mean, yeah.
But
You're right. You're right. But that's interesting, though. It's interesting that I mean, I think it says a lot about these individuals where they would use your Patreon account as
oh yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, it
they
says
just
a lot about them.
give me money, and like I'm like, wow, okay, I all right. So, and it
Interesting.
ends up in a disaster. I've had at least like, and it's always I'm not going to say always men. I don't, but it seems to be the male aspect of the population. They sign up. I mean, this is sort of a personal issue. I'm not trying to make it, but it reflects about. It almost reflects something in society. I can't put my finger on it just yet. Like I'd love to make a video about this. I just don't know how to do one.
Well, I think
But
it connects with
there
what you
are
were saying.
people, huh?
I think it connects with what we had been saying just moments ago about genuine connection. I think there's a genuine connection. It goes right back to it.
But it's almost as if spirituality, people have the ego has found a way to use spirituality as a disguise of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fair to say.
You know,
Yeah.
there are people out there who use spirituality to get things out of
Oh,
people.
yeah.
I'm like, wow. So even the spiritual world
Yeah.
has issues. Okay, you know.
I mean, I think you know what I think it is too, Iman. It's anyone who knows me well. I've said this more times where it should just be tattooed somewhere on me, and but I mean it. It's not a joke. I mean it. It's I think in keeping with your dilemma here is I think we with the authentic connection we want between male and female, and just with the other humans as friends and so forth, just connection with people. Again, I can realize we forget that the most authentic and perhaps the most real, just the most realist form, capital B, beauty, is
Yeah,
moral, physical, intellectual courage.
yeah.
You can't fake it. You can't fake that. It's not something you can go buy. It's not some sort of, excuse me, some sort of makeup you just put on and apply. You earn that. You earn that because it's something you did for yourself. That's
Indeed.
that's what makes it the most beautiful, actually, and it's something that really never fades. Um, to say
Yeah.
someone is, uh, attraction, let's say, gorgeous, those kind of terms, that's a physical thing, and that's a matter of individual preference. But beauty, I arguably would say beauty is something, no matter what continent you are, no matter where you are, beauty is moral, physical, intellectual courage. And it's having the strength to endure when all those things are coming at you. When everyone's a naysayer and you're saying, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still doing what I got to do. I'm still getting
Exactly.
up. Um, you know, you,
Exactly.
you're you're in line when you're fully in line with those values for yourself. That is someone who stands out. That is beauty, and I think that's a higher level. I think we don't talk about it today because I think most people, it goes over most people's heads, or they don't care about it. But I think that is a truer, authentic form of something that is captivating. It certainly would captivate my attention if I saw somebody doing something for themselves who I know is not putting on airs. That would actually, like, wow, that's pretty damn awesome. That would be that energy. That energy is not fakeable. You can't fake that.
No, and you are essentially discussing something that I have been working on, which is why you heal your traumas, which is why you get over your patterns, which is why reading energy is incredible. It's subtle energy is once you read it, once you
Oh
begin to
yeah.
sense it, you're talking about alignment.
Mhm.
You're talking about your thoughts matching your emotions, matching your words, matching your actions. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're talking about you walk the walk and you talk the talk,
Exactly.
not you walk the walk and talk something else,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
you do as I say, not as I do, which is what you see all around you. It's the definition of a politician right now,
Yeah.
a hypocrite. You know.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
when you find these qualities, which I hope I would love to finally align. I'm working hard on it, and I catch myself. And before I judge others or before I say this person is not aligned, I work on me. I focus on me. The more I'm aligned, the more I'm authentic, the more I'm real, the more I speak and walk the truth, the more the people around me will do the same.
Absolutely.
So I focus on me.
It is. It's a starting point. It's always a starting point.
It
You
has
have
to,
to.
you clean your home, clean your room. You don't go demanding other people clean their rooms when your room is a shit show, you know?
I love that analogy. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. Well, there's something, I think it was, it's true. It's damn right. It's true. President Roosevelt said something. I think it's a quote by Roosevelt. He said,
Oh, yeah.
um, if men want to be given bigger tasks, they should start with, I think I'm going to paraphrase here. They should start with making their bed. In other words, a simple task begats bigger tasks and bigger responsibilities in life.
Well, we've become shells.
Yeah.
We've become shells of humans. It's,
Yeah.
it's all exterior. We've become worshippers of money. We've become so diverted from what is important.
Oh, yeah.
And, none of it is important. None of this. None of it. You could be living on the street, and you could be the most aligned human being. You
Yeah.
know.
Look at Diogenes, the Greek philosopher, lived on the street, was chose peasantry, and he was honored and beloved by emperors because of his
Go.
choices.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
feared and thought crazy, but also thought to be amazing at the same time. So there is something about being cast away and then being someone who is, as you say, like kind of a black sheep. there always is going to be these individuals, and I think there's like us, and there's always going to be judgments in the time periods in which we exist. And
Indeed.
the irony is when you look back on, say, 50, 60, 100, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, the things now we take for granted as being common knowledge, or of course, why wouldn't we do it? Those always
Yeah,
weren't the case, even 1,000 years ago. So I think progress has many streams, and it's not just one flow. There's a political progress, there's a social progress, and they're not always aligned. There's an individual progress. Are we progressing to achieve something, to achieve a goal, um, to attain something in our life, to add something to our life? Those aren't always aligned, and sometimes they're too far apart. But I
yeah,
think when they start, even on an individual level, when you start aligning them a little more for yourself, for your own benefit, and then subsequently outwardly, you see the benefits all around you. So you see the energy being given as much as being received.
indeed,
And
indeed.
yeah, I mean, I think people don't realize that. I mean, I'm in no way, I'm not in any way a good promoter. Certainly, you are more than I am of spirituality, but I do not, I'm not opposed to it, because I think we just should not limit ourselves in
Yeah,
in any way. Stagnation of thought is death before its time, and you don't want to be stagnant in life. A glass of water is healthy. Leave it overnight on a table, I'm sure it's going to be full of bacteria.
exactly. Can't disagree.
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh damn! I wish you could.
No, it's lovely. This little chit chat. I wish we could do more.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
Well, yeah,
I wish we could
absolutely.
meet.
This
Uh,
is refreshing because you do, as I said, at the top of the podcast, you do kind of uphold something that I think is refreshing. You have the spiritual element, you have this connectivity, and you strive to have greater connectivity, and it's comes through in your content very well.
thank
And I
you.
think that's refreshing because usually, in terms of dynamics or categories, um, you know, everyone has something they support. I'm a big supporter of the voices of the minority within the minority of S Muslim. That's my thing. I love raising those voices and those individuals and the
Good,
plurality of those individuals.
good.
But you also are very spiritual, which is not necessarily the case, which I've come to know that. Like you hold on to that in a way that's very authentic and very beautiful. So it's very, perhaps it's just very uniquely you too, which I think is very cool in itself.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you for this
welcome.
opportunity.
Well, you're welcome.
I
I
I
think I think this is beneficial for anybody watching. I mean, there's so many how-to books, how to become your authentic self. There's no individual, there's no writer's manual, there's no writer's guide. You have to be able to, you know, in the same way that experiences may have similar attributes, they're not going to be the same situations. You
exactly.
have to be able to react in a stoic way accordingly, and knowing that not everything is gloom and doom. This gloom and doom may also be a way for you to from darkness to light very quickly. It might be a way for you to experience horror, then to know, wow, if this is horror, then there must be something else. Then there must be something else to strive towards, or to run towards. And I think that's found in everywhere. I think that's found in every element, every aspect of life, every outlet in life too, whether it's within social, political, cultural. And when we just fall into the mainstream of things and just doing the mainstream thinking, or not even just the mainstream thing, but just the mainstream distractions might be a better way of describing my thought here. When we're distracted by things that are purely for the purposes of being distracted, we miss
Yeah,
out on things that are just salubrious, things that are spontaneous, things that are absolutely healthy on the highest meaning of healthy for us. Those guttural laughs that we don't not going to get from anywhere else. It's not just a chuckle, but a guttural laugh, and something that's healthy for us. A great conversation, or a
yeah,
great walk, and subsequently, not taking little things for granted, or depriving ourselves of those little moments.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Well,
might I remind everyone, including you and me, never take your breath for granted.
well put.
So many of us take our breath for granted.
Well put.
When one of my practices, it's become the energy of gratitude is the best way to bring everything you desire into your life. Practice gratitude every day, multiple times a day, and be grateful. It doesn't have to be big, amazing things. Be
Exactly.
grateful. Be grateful for your body that works. Be grateful for your skin that is beautiful. Be grateful for your health. Be grateful for your voice. Be grateful for your ability to see and hear, for your senses. Be grateful for the breath.
Well put. I think that's a beautiful way to conclude this conversation. I think that's a healthy and I think that's a salubrious way to end this. We started off at a high point, we're ending on a high point. That's pretty damn cool as far as I'm concerned.
What
And you
I'm
know what?
grateful to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I look forward to hopefully catching up with you and having another one of these conversations down the road too.
same, same. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really do appreciate it, and I
Well,
appreciate you.
well, thank likewise. The feeling's mutual, and I appreciate this conversation. I look forward to hearing the thoughts and quandaries of those who are going to listen to it when it premieres too.
Oh dear. I'm kidding. So do I. So do I.